I, 40F, have been married to my husband, 44M, for 20 years now. We have 2 kids, 16F and 13M. My husband is what I would consider a high earner by middle-class standards. Also, strappin' folks, this is going to be long. I've never told anyone, so. Twitter, my husband cheated on me. I dragged the guilting for almost a decade, then ruined his life, and chased him out of town. 10 years ago, and by complete coincidence, I found out that my husband has been cheating on me with men, and that from before we got married. We live in a smallish town in the south of the USA. Him coming out as gay will have consequences. I believe that that is the only reason he has not come out to anyone. First, here's how I found out he was cheating on me. He got sloppy, left a credit card bill for a secret card in the pocket of a coat. While going through it, I found all the telltale signs of infidelity. Payments to a hotel in a nearby county, restaurant bills, gifts, flowers, condoms, and lubricant, etc. I started camping outside the hotel on days he told me he would be late, and I saw him bringing different men there. I am very good at compartmentalization and have a great poker face, comes with growing up in an abusive household, so I was able to give myself the time to cool off and to come up with what I should do. First thing I did was getting an STD panel, since I didn't know how safe he was with his partners. It came out negative. Then I convinced him that we should use condoms, since I was having side effects from the pill. He was awkward with it. I had a long think, and I came up to the decision that I was not going to confront him, nor was I going to leave him. He was able to provide me a really good lifestyle, one that I would never be able to afford with my high school diploma, a cleaning lady, a nanny to help with the kids, regular spa days, and a country club. A new car every other year, luxury family vacations every year. He was a good dad, a good partner, the cheating aside, and really good in bed. But I was not going to let him have a single guilt-free week in his life. That would be my revenge. I started small, planning great date nights for us, telling him that I felt our relationship has cooled, that I wanted the spark back. Then I would sometimes slip into conversation some tea about a cheating husband, a gasp gay man that has been using his poor wife as a beard, complimenting the only gay couple we know for having the courage of being real men, who were out and proud of themselves. On the other hand, I would praise him as the perfect husband to anyone and everyone, especially if he was in earshot. The amount of guilt gifts I got was astounding. The man was even sending me flowers weekly. It continued the same way for years. I could literally see how much it was weighing on him. Me. Well, my parents were part of a commune with the concept of free love. I was the same. I just considered myself in an open marriage. It seems that cheating is easier to ignore if you are not that big on monogamy in the first place, and my husband was keeping me satisfied, so I felt no need to find a partner of my own. Then 4 years ago, I guess he met the love of his life. He started seeing just the one guy. I was seriously thinking of ending the whole thing, especially since I have started a business by then, and was able to bring in enough money to support myself and my kids, while maintaining my lifestyle. But then he went and introduced his side piece to us. He fucking brought him into our house, introduced him to our kids, and that was enough for me to keep tormenting him. Apparently he was a new friend he made while golfing. He started hinting at moving to another state, one where it would be easier for him to come out. I refused. I told him that my business was here, and I was not going to start over in another state. Also, the kids had their friends and extended family here. It would be unfair to uproot them. Then he started trying to start arguments. I guess he wanted us to fight, then for me to ask for a divorce. I just stopped all those arguments in their tracks. I would just agree with whatever he said. He was right. I was wrong. And to make it up to him, how about a nice dinner and some great sex? He hated that. I knew from spying on his phone that having sex with me felt like cheating on his BF, the audacity of this man. I also knew that his BF was pressuring him to leave me almost every day. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He started drinking, and when it got too heavy, that was when I decided that enough was enough. I wanted to ruin his life, not his health. Also, I grew up with an alcoholic father and did not want that for my kids. So I gathered all the evidence of his infidelity over the last 9 years. Photos with different men, conversations, his Grindr profile, even though he no longer had one. Everything. Then I hired a divorce attorney and mailed the evidence to his employer. He has a morality clause in his contract, and adultery breaks it. All his relatives, including parents, as well as our church, I was never big on religion like him. It was like a bomb exploded. He was fired. The congregation turned on him. For cheating, not for being gay. Let's keep that straight. I would never allow me kids to be part of a church that discriminated against their father, even if he was not out. His parents wouldn't take him in after I kicked him out, and he was shamed publicly. Gotta love that small-town gossip mill. And the cherry on the top, his BF was run out of the town, and he couldn't follow him because he wanted to fight for custody of our kids. Now, almost a year later, I am a free woman. I got to keep the house, my car, and my business. He got 75% of the retirement and investments accounts, but he won't be paying alimony. I got full custody. He got visitations. I also got child support. He had to move 6 hours away to find a new job. Couldn't put the last job he worked at his whole life as a reference. His relationship with his family is rocky. His reputation in town is ruined. So he can't move back anytime soon. The love of his life left him for good, and my kids only tolerate him because I did my best to shield them and to tell them that he is still a good father to them. I also made sure to treat him politely, never talked bad about him, and had a lengthy talk about how their father being gay is it's who he is, and that it was not his fault, that the only wrong thing he did was hiding it from me. So I guess the results of his cheating was years of guilt followed by a ruined life. Let's make something clear. I am not the good person in this story. We were both bad. I am not here trying to get pats on the back, or to be told that I did well. I know that what I did was messed up. I am here because I wanted to tell someone, and I can't do that IRL.
Next story.
This is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. This story has a few references to some triggering things just fine. Now I've been debating over posting this or not, but have finally decided I will. This is my grandpa's nuclear revenge on my behalf. So I guess let's begin. It's going to be long, sorry. I grew up dealing with a lot of mental health issues, as my mother is a drug addict, and my father liked to ignore my existence, as in the result of a one-night stand while he was married. So needless to say, his wife hated me, and their children treated me horribly as well. The only good people I had in my life was my grandma and grandpa on my father's side. I loved them, and spent a lot of time at my grandpa's business. I'll explain that a little later. Now at 14, everything went further downhill. I won't go into details, but my mother almost passed away, and I met a man, let's name him Goat. He looked like one. Long story short, Goat was 25 at the beginning, and emotionally, physically, and sexually abused me. While I was under the pretense that I loved him, and it was okay. He pushed me away from my grandparents and isolated me for 2 years until a friend helped me get out of it. During this next year, Goat stalked me, threatened me, and had me absolutely terrified. I was afraid of going to the police as I didn't want to bring harsh light to my grandpa's business, and because I was afraid. I was staying at my friend's house for a while during this time, as my panic attacks, and what I now know is it was horrible, and I hated to be alone. During this time, my grandmother passed away, one of the only lights in my life left. So I became worse. I began drinking and going to parties and trying to forget my life. Right before my 18th birthday, Goat made a real-life appearance again. On my way back from a big party, he jumped me, beat me black and blue, and almost killed me. I was found and taken to hospital where they began treating me, and as I was underage, they asked me to call an adult in my life that they could talk to. I tried to call my father, but he didn't pick up. Knowing my mother was going to help, I had to call my grandfather. He was at the hospital in lightning speed, and for the first time in my life, I watched this man that had built his own empire really break down. Even at my grandma's funeral, he didn't cry. I spent 2 months in hospital, with police questioning me and my grandpa by my side every day. During this time, he met my friend who helped me out of it all at the beginning and became very close to him. My grandfather helped me get on my feet for a whole year, until one day he had a large family gathering and socialized the whole time, taking me with him. That night I will never forget. We went to get ice cream, and then he just hugged me for a very long time, holding me tight and reassuring me everything would be okay. The next day, my grandpa exacted his revenge. Now my grandpa was the owner of a well-off law firm that also had private detectives in a smaller office in his building. He apparently tracked down Goat and went about his revenge. My grandpa shot Goat 3 times in the stomach and once in the chest. Goat passed away in the hospital later that day while my grandpa was taken in and soon put in jail for manslaughter, which he pleaded guilty to. I never got the chance to visit my grandpa in jail as he passed away soon after in jail from complications. 1 week after my grandpa's death, I got a call from his solicitor, and he asked me to go in. I was met with a lengthy letter from my grandpa, which was nothing but loving and showed that he had found out he had terminal lung cancer and wouldn't live much longer, but he couldn't happily leave me alone in this world without Goat being gone too. My grandpa left almost everything to me. At 20, I would inherit the law firm and could do as I pleased with it, and I inherited 95% of his savings, his house he lived in with grandma, and his other assets. In case anyone's interested, I turned 21 last week. I'm currently working at the law firm. My grandpa's secretary, now the CO, has taken over the important things in the building and makes most of the decisions. I spent half the money I was given in locked saving funds for all of the younger family members to go to college when it's time. I cut all contact off with my father, who tried to steal money from me during the death arrangements of Grandpa. My friend mentioned earlier in the story is now my fiancé, and we are getting married next summer. I'm still suffering from PTSD and depression, but it's getting better every day. I'm in therapy for my treatment. I got a tattoo for my grandpa and grandma on my back of 2 lions protecting a cub. I also opened up a safe house for anyone going through abuse of any kind, no matter the race, gender, or age. I'm trying to help anyone I can in that situation. Besides, for what I've put away for later in life, I'm also thinking of opening up the bakery I always wanted and employing the people that need the job and help the most, but I'm unsure at the moment about that. My grandpa and grandma was a godsend, and to this day, I miss them greatly, but I know I couldn't have changed the stubborn old man's mind even if I tried.
Next story.
This happened in 1995 on a small rural town in Chaco province, Argentina. Everyone knows each other here until this very day. My father was an electrician, the only one in town, so he was constantly meeting people, and as he was born and raised here, he was very well known by everyone. He grew up with many of the police officers from back then, and they even had asados together, Argentinian barbecue, at least 3 times a month for years. My father was not a violent man. That was the only time I saw him do something like that. Other man with his busy son, they were not from town. They had moved here a year or so prior. They were from Buenos Aires. I don't really knew the guy, only his kid, who was an absolute asshole to almost every kid in the block, and he constantly picked on me and my brother, since we were the youngest of our neighborhood, therefore couldn't defend ourselves. Bucky wasn't trained since we knew nothing about training, but he was loyal and playful with every kid. One thing for sure, though, he was protective. One afternoon, we were playing in the park, and out came Bully Kid, who at first threw rocks at us, then got closer and started calling us names, and us being little got scared. He was bigger than us. We tried to leave, but he blocked us and started hitting my brother. I tried to stop him, but he did the same to me. Bucky heard us crying and came running, jumping, and getting the bully's arm at once. He bit, shook, and released, staying between us and the bully barking like mad until the kid left running. We saw Hy get inside his house, and a few seconds later came Father with the sledgehammer. Bucky stood in front of us, hairs raised and barking, but the man didn't stop. He got close, raised the sledgehammer, and went straight down to Bucky's head. He did not hit him once, he hit him 5 times. The first blow I'll never forget. The sound of the steel connecting with the skull, the painful whimper of our dog. Bucky got knocked with the first blow. By the fifth and final, his head was caved in. My brother and I were frozen in place, scared to death, crying a lot. The asshole dad say something which I don't remember now, and left. We were unable to move for a moment. Such was our fear. Finally, I grabbed my brother and went home. Dad was fixing a fan, and Hen he saw us asked us what happened. We told him and just said, "Right. Oak, let's wash your faces and grab some ice cream." Yes, that's what our dad did. Took us for ice cream. He did a pretty well job to mask his emotions and showed himself cheerful to us. That night, when brother was asleep and I was playing in the kitchen, he grabbed the wrench, told Mom, and he had to fix something in the neighbor. I assumed it was another neighbor, since it was a common thing for my dad to get asked by neighbors to fix things. Nodded to Mom. Mom nodded back. Yes, she knew, and left. He came back some minutes later, told me to go to bed, and that was it. A decade later, we came to know what happened. He went to the guy's house, knocked on the door, and punched the dude so hard it rocked his head back. Told him he would break one limb for each of his children, whom he made cry. I can only imagine what he would have done if we were more than 2 kids. Proceeded to beat the guy some more in front of his family, and then took the wrench and broke his legs. He then left the house, went home, asked me to go to bed, talked to Mom, and went straight to the police. Turned himself in, and was actually delayed until the police went and checked with the other guy. My dad also showed our dead dog to them, and the police found the sledgehammer on the bully's house still with blood on it, and they let my father go. They also spoke with the dude when he got better and suggested him to leave the town, since if they weren't like before, they wouldn't ever be now. To this, you gotta understand the mindset from some small rural towns. We looked at outsiders with mistrust back then, and it took a while for people to get used to you if you were new in town. However, these people came and weren't very much liked. Apparently because of the kid, and the father was also an asshole. I do not condone the actions of my father, nor am I justifying in any way the events that transpired then. But as a father myself, I can totally understand to what extent can a man react when her kids are at play. I love my dad, and I have mad respect for him. Rip Dad, we miss you greatly. So there, that's the full story. Sorry for my bad English, it is not my native language.